3, 2, 1. Frank, the floor is yours, sir. Good afternoon. Sunday, episode 28 or 9. I gotta check.
29.
Okay, there it is.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Everyman BJJ. I'm here with my buddies, Noah Green and Jordan Worth, and episode 29, guys. So we're staying consistent with it. It hasn't always been easy. Life happens, but here we are, episode 29. We've got an hour of content per episode to 90 minutes, sometimes a little more than that. If we break that up, guys, we're slowly producing a nice little library here. We keep at it. Pretty soon we're going to be at episode 100. And when you break that up in little pieces, a lot of content out there. And I would say this to anybody out there. I know that we're not a household name. Guys, we're averaging like 10, 11, 20 views per episode. I can tell you this, as someone who's lived in the content space and the journalism space and the storytelling space for 26, 27 years, we've had some slow starts. Sometimes it takes a while to get heated up. But anybody out there, if you bear with us, if you listen to the hour or the 90 minutes in there, we have a lot of good stuff. I think this is going to, guys, we're refining it, we're fine tuning it, we're finding our voice. We're going to be able to do some good stuff. I want to run with something you said though, Noah, right before we went on air.
Oh boy.
Which is, so if I'm remembering Noah correctly, he was saying something like he wanted, he's looking like a lot of people to get in better shape and to lose weight. And he knows that's going to help him in life. That's going to help him feel better. And oh, by the way, he's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Renzo Gracie. And so that's probably going to help your jiu-jitsu, make you more nimble, etc. So Noah's asking Jordan and myself about, strategies and things. And he said, well, Frank, I want you to talk to me a little bit about nutrition because I do the Frank Forza fitness thing. And I've been down that nutrition rabbit hole for many years now. And he was like, but I don't want the vegan or the vegetarian. Just give me some advice or some counsel, but don't make it about veganism or vegetarianism. I want to clear this up. I want to clear the air, guys, on our show now, because I get this all the time. And people think because I'm overwhelmingly, predominantly plant-based, they have pigeonholed me. They've put me in as a vegan, as a vegetarian. Absolutely not. I am not. I do not identify as vegan. I do not identify as vegetarian. And the main reason for that is that there is a dogma associated with that. There is a lot of dogma. There's a lot of almost religiosity that some people have. There's a lot of people who, if I was a vegan, I might shame you for eating meat and make it, I could turn it political. I could try to make you feel small. I could think I'm better than you. I could be a vegan snob and think I'm better than you. I'm not saying all of my vegan friends and vegetarian friends are like that out there. I'm not saying that. I have friends that are full-fledged vegan and vegetarian. I simply, guys, and you guys will relate, this relates to life outside of the martial arts. This relates to life in our personal life. This relates to everything where people want to put labels on all of us. Like they want to just put this label on you. And the problem with labels is labels limit. People like labels because they're convenient. They think, okay, I know these couple things about Noah, so I can put him in a category. I can put him in a box, right? And for whatever psychological comfort, it helps them. And then they'll make stereotypes about you. They'll make judgments about you if they know your political party, if they whatever. People like the label. And I don't like it, guys, because life happens and sometimes we have to reinvent. Sometimes we have to dramatically change and transform. And when we get caught up in dogma, when we get caught up in labels, we're not ready to adapt. And that's the problem I have even with vegan and vegetarianism, even though I love my friends. If they're having great results with that, amen, hallelujah, good for you. But I don't like it because you got to be ready to pivot. Let me give you an example. So I have only eaten meat once so far this year in 2020. Now people say, God, well, Frank, you're a closet vegan. You're definitely a vegetarian. You have only eaten meat once. And the one time I ate meat, guys, there was a woman. She lives in France by way of Africa. She married a guy here in Utah, and we've become friends. She's an older woman, and she likes to do nice things. And sometimes when I see her, she'll be like, here's something from my garden I brought you. One time she brought me chicken. She had made this chicken, right? She'd made this chicken, all these vegetables and whatever. Now, what am I going to say to that woman and say, well, you know what? I made a vow to myself that I'm only going to eat meat. I'm only going to eat plant-based this year for my reasons, for my experimentation, not because I have something against eating meat. because I will eat meat again. But I was like, for 2020, I want to go meatless. And I've done that. I did that one other year as well. And I just wanted to experiment and fine tune some things and work on even some things health-wise. So now here, this really sweet woman brings me the chicken and the vegetables. And I'm like, okay, what, you know, she's like there, and she like wants me to eat it right in front of her. So I'm like, you know, I for a moment I have that dilemma. I'm like, well, what's the thing? I made a vow, I made a covenant with myself. I'm not eating meat in 2020. I have this sweet old lady who I'm going to insult if I don't eat that chicken, or even if I don't insult her, say, I'll eat it later. That's kind of an insult. And then later I throw it away. Now that's completely disingenuous and not authentic. So what did I do? I had a little, you know, cognitive dissonance for about 20, 30 seconds. I had a discussion, and then I decided, you know what? You're going to eat the chicken. Wayne Dyer used to say, better to be kind than right. And sometimes in life, it's better to be kind than right. And I ate the chicken, and I didn't beat myself up. I didn't go to bed angry. I didn't whatever. Now this is an example where, I mean, we have to get away from dogma and labels, because life happens. And sometimes your grandmom or your next door neighbor who's older or whatever does something nice for you. And you can't be like, you know, tied to these absolutes, tied to this religiosity. Life happens. You know, just like we, you know, Jordan and I, we all talk about that in the old days of jiu-jitsu. In a lot of gyms, you weren't allowed to do takedowns. You weren't allowed to do leg locks. This is forbidden. This is taboo. And we have to open up our mind. What's that, Jordan?
I've never heard of not being allowed to do takedowns. That's crazy.
Well, I'm not saying you weren't allowed. It was frowned upon, because it was like, well, there's not enough space. You're going to get someone hurt. And if you do the wrestling thing, that means you're not learning jiu-jitsu. You're not actually embracing the jiu-jitsu. You're just going to try to wrestle everybody, and you're not going to actually be doing jiu-jitsu. So you're kind of running from the fight if you do that wrestling stuff too much. So my point is, we get into these labels and these limits, and it can hurt your game on the mat when we start getting these labels and we start restricting and creating so many rules and so many laws that it narrows our development. And the same thing with health and fitness. You can go out there. I have friends. I just talked to Chad Mendez, right? Chad Mendez is probably, you got Johnny Hendricks and Chad Mendez might be the two preeminent outdoorsmen, fishermen, hunters in all of fighting. And Chad just retired. And it's like, this guy, he was saying, he's like, Frank, I estimate that 90 to 95% of all the meat I've eaten throughout my wrestling career, he wrestled in college, he was an NCAA runner-up. Throughout my UFC career, I think he fought for the title a couple times. And he's like, I would say 90-95% of it is animal that I hunted, that I ate, and I'm eating the most pristine meat. And it's a big difference, right? So it's like he's eating this pristine, basically super, you know, exponentially grass-fed meat. There's a big difference with that. So someone like me, you know, Noah, if we ever go to a Brazilian steakhouse or something and it's not 2020, yes, you will see me eat, what is it called, churrasca or charria, whatever it's called, you know. Yes, I will.
Churrascaria.
Yeah. I will say this one thing, and Chad Mendez and I had talked about this too. I will say this to people, because I do think that we as Americans do eat too much meat. The average American eats, from what I've read, I think it was the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I think was it. And it's the average American eats 10 ounces of meat a day. To me, that is way too much. It's only a matter of convenience that we eat all that meat. That meat sits in your colon. It sits in your body. It's got steroids. It got antibiotics. It's got gook. They fed the animal a bunch of GMO feed. The antibiotics for the animal go into your gut, and that disrupts your gut flora, your gut bacteria. That affects your immune system. 70% or more of your immune system is in your gut. When they start disrupting the gut, they're disrupting your immune system. That's a big deal because of COVID. So all that meat, I'm just saying, if you're going to eat meat, right, there's no guilt, there's no shaming, you do you, but there's no reason to eat 10 ounces a day. It should be kind of like a delicacy, once, twice a week, high quality meat. If we were in the hunter days, like, bro, you're not going to hunt and be eating meat every day. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, but you're not going to live past 30 either.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to fight with you over nutrition because I'm not qualified, but there's a lot. In fact, I'm going to withhold my comments on that because I want to learn. I want to learn more than I want to debate. I want to learn.
You might have listened to Jordan Peterson too much on that one. I know someone told me Jordan Peterson's on like only meat only, and he's just claiming. I can combat that one too, but I won't waste our time on take the whole podcast.
Well, let me pivot the conversation a little bit, because I was saying something earlier, like in the 5 minutes before we started, because we were catching up, and I wanted to make a challenge out to Jordan, and that's Jordan. Publicly, I'm going to say it right now. In 2012, I had a shoulder surgery on my right shoulder, and it was at the point where I could not do push-ups. I have a similar injury right now, and what I did, and that was in February 2012, and what I did is I did my own rehab with the shoulder, and I had my own gym. I had my own weights at my house in Texas, and that's also whenever I was started to go through my divorce. And I stopped, and I reached out to one of my close friends, and he was like huge into CrossFit, and he's like, okay, I want you to do this, and he turned me on to Gary Taubes, which has a huge thing about sugar and carbohydrates. And basically, I started logging all my food. I became very strict on my food, logging everything into a spreadsheet. And he said, do not, he explained to me, don't eat, you're not going to do paleo, you're not going to do, all this. I just don't want you eating carbs anymore. No more carbs. And so I was, but then, so I can go back to that and copy that out and show it to you. But that was only part of it. I started moving again, and I went from 272, I think, which, to be honest, I'm probably not too far from there right now. So I could be 260. And I dropped. I got on a plane to Rio August 13th, and I weighed 212. And I competed at the what's called the Carioquinha. And I did, I think I did middle heavyweight, or I did I have to check and see. I think I did either light heavyweight or middleweight. Or so I weighed in, because everything was in kilos, so I was really confused then. And then when I went to weigh in, I was below the weight limit with my gi on, and I was shocked. But my movement in Rio on the mats was phenomenal. Just how I felt. I did not have acid reflux. My joints did not hurt. My sciatica was long gone, then no problem. But right now, guys, I'm saying it here, Jordan, I'll give you $1,000 if you can help me get back down to 185 pounds. And Frank, I'm open and coachable, and I will set it because I'm open and coachable to your guidance. Because the Forza Fit. Because here's the thing. I know a lot of shit, but I fail to be pragmatic about what I know. This is so hard. I know what to do. I don't live that way. I don't do it. And that is so hard to do. And I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to say right now, I think on our show.
That's one thing. Walking it is another.
And that's your motto. Your motto is that. I know that's your motto on Instagram. Don't say it, do it. Something that effect.
That's I think what distinguishes me even from the people that have PhDs and whatever. They talk about it in petri dishes. I do it. I live it. So it's a big fucking difference. Pardon my French. It's a big difference. That's why I don't consider myself less than some of these dudes, because I live it. I experiment with it. I get in the trenches with it. And it's easy for people to say, well, this, and go on someone's podcast and talk shit, like Dr. Rhonda went on Joe Rogan talking about the sun and you know, and how good the sun is. Bro, that's old. That's 20 years ago.
Yeah, you've been saying that forever.
I've been doing that for 30 years since I was landscaping. 30 years, no sunscreen. So that's not new to a guy like me. How did I know it? I didn't wait for the science. I lived it. I tinkered with it. I played around with it. I pushed the limits of it. So that's the big difference. Like I always say to you, Noah, science is awesome. Science is beautiful. Science gives us a lot of wonderful things, but science is the last to know, brother. It's the last to know. There's people out in front of the science. There's first movers who figure it out, who go there, and then the science catches up later. Science is late to the party. When you wait on science, you're going to be late to the party, because then everybody's going to know it by then when they ring those bells. So you want to try to be in front of the science. You got to be a little more daring. Anyway, Jordan,
I do agree with that. I do
Jordan.
agree with that wholeheartedly, actually. I think almost everything, things, people think one way about it, and then a small select few will know the truth, and later on, it'll become a popular trend once science starts to back it. That resonated a lot with me, Frank. That's actually what you're saying.
Look at Eric Paulson, guys. Look at Jordan. Have you heard of Eric Paulson? You've heard of Eric Paulson, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Go look at old Noah. Go look at old Eric Paulson videos, like 1990s, and go look at this guy with footlocks and some of the stuff he was doing. Him and Matt.
All right. I'm gonna grab my notebook.
They were systematizing it, and how many people? God bless you for knowing who Eric Paulson is. How many people, like 20-some-year-olds nowadays, know who Eric Paulson is?
That's admirable. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to get my notebook, because that's one thing I did forget in my setup. But I can hear you.
Noah, we'll send you this. I got a notebook. That's when I looked.
Okay, cool. All right.
So,
Jordan.
I studied all those old school dudes, Frank. I also was telling my buddy the other day about Nino Shembri and about how Nino Shembri was doing all the 10th Planet stuff way before 10th Planet.
So, Jordan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Jordan, would you, before we get too far away, do you accept this offer?
Of course.
Cool. All right, we'll have to get together after the podcast and get to working on it, because I'm gonna have to
do a lot of like calisthenics, a lot of movement, a lot of like. I think that's what we're gonna be doing. Less strength, like not too much like lifting weights and stuff like that. I think a lot of like cardio and a lot of like you know the guy Ito Portal, a lot of like movement stuff where you're just moving your own Conor McGregor style movement, where we're doing bear crawls, stuff like that. Learning how to just move your body again, learning how to get comfortable moving your body, and then we can start doing more intense calisthenics and stuff like that. But I think that'll be a good start for you, because that'll be a good cardio, because it's already just kind of difficult for you to move your body in intense ways, and it'll be good for you to just get that movement back, and it'll also be a good cardio exercise and strength building exercise. I think that'll be a good place to start, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, I need a kick in the ass and to get me moving again.
We now officially have 2 curse words. I apologize for my earlier curse word, even though I know Jordan likes me. Here's that. Now Jordan likes when I cuss. He's like, I didn't know if I cuss.
I like this Frank today, dude. This is a cool Frank, man.
I kind of I'm bringing the chip back on my shoulder a little bit for the second half of 2020. I've been bringing the chip back a little bit of the fire, because I've been seeing the videos of people, just people. It looks like we're headed to tribalism, and people are just, everybody wants to take things by force now and complain about everything. And there's some valid reasons to complain. But anyway, the world seems like, guys, we could. Listen, I'm an optimist. I like to say the glass is half full. But you have to entertain the possibility now that we could have a civil war. We like to think this can happen here in America. It is so divided. It's so polarized now. I'm at least starting to think we could have a civil war. I'm not hoping we do. I hope we don't. We could have a civil war. At the very least, we're going to have areas of the country regionally where there's going to be a lot of stuff go down, a lot of flare-ups. It's going to get, I predict here on our show, it will get a lot worse before it gets better, because the division is so deep. And because of that, me being Mr. tree hugger, pacifist, hippie, you know, that I've kind of moved into that space of the Tao Te Ching, and I've moved into that, and I realized, again, this is where we talk about adaptation and not being wedded to dogma. I love peace. I'm all for peace, but you got to always be ready for war. Promote peace, but stay ready for war. So me right now, what I see going in the world, I'm like, Frank, you need to get better as a martial artist. You need to get better for situations that can happen, multiple attacker situations with weapons. You need to get smarter. You need to get better. And the part of me that does that better is the guy that's this guy that has a little chip on him. That's the guy that says, we're going to go train. We're going to learn knives. We're going to get better with weapons. We're going to be ready. We're going to stay ready. We're going to be all about peace. But if it goes down, then you got to be ready. And so 2020 has sort of ignited that in me. And that's I think what you're picking up on, little Jordan.
Man, I've been watching videos on knife fighting, Frank. Let's start training knife fighting techniques at the park.
I'm all for that. I love that.
Cool.
That.
I've got a rubber. I got a rubber training knife.
Watching like college techniques and like Aikido, like disarming techniques, dude. It's super cool, man. It's like a martial art I never realized was there.
Yeah. I also have some training handguns. They're rubber. So I have a few of that. I have some of that equipment to bring to so we could train that if you want to do that. So yeah, I've got that gear. But oh man, I'm a little intimidated now. I've got to move my body again. You know what's tough for me is like when I this past week, was it Thursday? Yeah, I went to Mount Charleston, and they had a fire, and a buddy of mine, we were going to go do the like an easy beginner trail, and all that section was off limits, or it was closed because of the fire. So we wound up doing something called Cathedral Rock.
Yeah.
And it's like a mile and a half up. And from the moment I got out of the car, I was huffing and puffing. From the moment I got out of the car, and I mean, the elevation was 7,500 feet, and I was struggling to breathe. And that's the first time in a while that I was breathing so hard, and it took me 45 minutes to get up there, to get to the summit with some breaks. And I could taste iron in my mouth.
Iron in your mouth? Like you were bleeding?
Yeah. That's how, it's like blood, you know, but no blood, but I could taste, I had the like a little bit similar taste of blood in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I was huffing and puffing, and I'm like, all right, Noah, you know, you're not getting younger, and you've already proven to yourself before you can get down to 185, and that's your competition weight. That's the weight that you feel great at. That's the weight you was at in Brazil. That's your vein popping, ab almost showing weight. Get back there.
Almost showing.
Yeah, ab almost showing.
No, wait. Noah, let's psychologically peel back the layers. We all have our things.
Oh boy, here we go. It's vanity.
When you talk about knowledge versus application, right? Knowledge is not what you know, but what you do. Not what you know, but what you put into action. We all have areas of our life. I have those too. You know me. We all have those areas. So we're not picking on Noah because we could easily pick on Frank about his things. But just sticking to this one, since this is an area that I'm very strong and Jordan's very strong, this is an area that we know, right? So this is a learning opportunity. Let's peel back the layers on that. Why is it hard? Because you've done it before, so you can do it. Why is it hard to sustain, to commit to that and sustain it? What is it that you just don't like? And I'm being honest with you here. I'm not picking on you because I have, I have areas in my life. Is it because you're scared of the hard work? Like, is it like, damn, Frank, that it's physically so grueling that I don't enjoy it and I don't like it? What are the layers of that onion that are stopping you from sustaining it? Because you've done it before.
Yeah, I think sustaining is a different skill set than achieving it. And that's where, during that time of life, I did not have life's going to help give you lessons. and whether or not you take them and you practice them. So in the time from there to hang on, I'm explaining. It's a straight line. Hang on.
If you give me one sentence, give me it. Peel back. I don't want it tucked in any whatever. We can go with a longer explanation. If I just ask you one sentence, let's keep it simple, even if it's not perfect. What's one sentence? What's the biggest thing holding you back? We'll start simple. We can explain later. What is it?
Emotional eating. It's that simple. It's emotional eating.
Okay, specifically what foods? What foods do you crave when you get emotional? What do you crave?
It's got sugar in it.
Yep.
Sugar and fat.
Tell me some foods. Tell me some foods. You want emotional
sweet iced tea, fried chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy, rolls with butter, ice cream, milk and cookies.
All my diet, buddy.
And what times of day does this emotional eating strike usually?
Between 11 and 3 a.m. 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. But
really?
Oh wow, 11 p.m. and 3 a.m.
So yeah, if Noah goes to bed by 11 p.m., that cuts off a big swath of time.
We'll come back there in a second. So let's talk about the other side of that, which is you working out. How frequently are you able to work out to burn off some of that?
At this minute?
Yeah. What's your relationship been like in the last couple months? I know that life happened, COVID happened, but what's the relationship been with physical fitness, exercise, walking?
See these hands? No calluses because I'm not lifting weights anymore. But if you could see the muscle behind the typing, I'm like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But my ass looks like Bubba.
You're not working out much.
But not at all.
Jordan is going to come through for you, right? I'm
making myself extremely vulnerable, and listen, I'm here for it.
I've seen Jordan on Instagram. I saw him doing his one-legged squats. He does a lot.
Would love to do that. My exercise consists of taking out the garbage.
He's done his hanging abs. But listen, so we would call that a self-starter, right? A self-starter means Jordan can wake up, or I can wake up, or Robert Drysdale can wake up, and nobody has to be there to say, hey, we're going for that jog. We're going for that hike. We're going to go shadow box. We're going to go train. What is it about you? We all have these things in our life, but we're
cool. Let's get in there. So this is
what as far as the self-starter thing, meaning if Jordan's there to hold you accountable, I know you'll do it. If I'm there coaching you, I know you will do it. I know you will put the effort and show up. But for a lot of people, so you're helping a lot of people here, it's hard for them. They always say, Frank, I need someone to hold me accountable. The self-starter part is hard for them. It's hard for them to be their own coach, their own engine, their own fuel. So why do you think that is, that you can't say, wake up, you got the dog, and you say, look, first 45 minutes or an hour, I'm going to go I saw some stuff that Jordan did on Instagram or whatever, your favorite fitness, whoever. What makes that hard for you? Where's the block?
Yeah, that's real simple. So this is a head game. And I'm only coming back to this because the seed of all this was planted during my trip out to the East Coast and back that I made earlier in the month. Because you remember that book I mentioned called Suggestible? Let me get it. I'm looking it up on my phone. I think it's called Suggestible You by Eric Vance. Okay. And that's all about, placebo and nocebo and that discussion around it. And what I realized is, like, really, if I were to just stop associating myself and the mental image that I have of myself as the way my physical sense that I am right now, and if I were to reassociate myself and how I identify with myself as that version of myself that I was 8 years ago, where I was in 2012, if I were to reassociate myself with that, that person is the same person who was the one who came back from Marine Corps boot camp.
Okay, wait. Stop. Pause.
And so I have forgotten who I am,
pause.
and I am associating with where I'm at right now. It's a mental.
You're peeling back the layers. You just made a key thing. Say, Frank, my self-image is a problem, and if I can just get that image, and you had it before. So what's stopping you right now, or when we're done here, from changing and saying, this is the image, this is Noah, this is the whole code around that, these are the principles, this is my new code, this is my new covenant with myself, this is who I am right now.
Okay, so you're at the base of a mountain, and you're looking up, okay?
Yeah.
And you need to say, I need to imagine myself up there at the top of that mountain looking down at me. There's a whole lot of space between here and there, and it's very difficult for you to see yourself at that place again when you've gone away from it.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Rumi? Have you ever heard of the philosopher?
Where the crack, the crack is where the...
My favorite Rumi quote, right, great poet, is act as if the entire world is rigged in your favor. Right? Act as if. So if you just were to assume, Wayne Dyer used to talk about this, and Neville Goddard was probably the best I ever heard talk about it, but act as if, right? Jim Carrey went on Oprah and talked about it, which is, if we acted as if it's true right now, that right now, not futuristically, not in 2 months, not in 3 months, not once you get in shape, but you are that Noah right now. You are that Noah who takes command, who's a self-starter. And now, if you just thought it once, you say, I am whatever, I am X, I am Noah at 185 pounds, slender, you can see my abs, I am that guy. Now, you have to hold true to that. Just like Noah being a black belt, you have to hold true to that. So you can't be a fleeting one-time thought, which is, I am the 185 pounder. It has to be an everyday, it has to be a multiple times a day thing. It has to be with conviction, and you have to believe it. It's a head game, meaning it's a game, because the thing is, Noah, Sugar Ray Leonard used to talk about this too. A champion is someone who believes in themselves when no one else will. Before anybody becomes the champion, they already believe they were champion. Before Ali was the champion, he acted like, I'm the champion. He would go in these fights with Sonny Liston and George Foreman, all these guys. They'd be like, Foreman's going to kill him. Sonny Liston's going to kill him. He had already beaten them, and he had already thought, I'm the champion. You're holding my belt. Remember, Conor McGregor said to the guys, you're holding my belt. That's my belt. Give me my belt. Remember, he went to Jose Aldo, and he's like, he snatched the belt from Jose Aldo. It wasn't Conor's belt yet, right? But the metaphor was, oh, yes, it is my belt, right? It's already mentally, I've already convinced myself that's you. You have my belt. Give me my belt.
Yes.
And so you are a champion in your mind before you're ever 185. You are 185 in your mind with conviction, right? With a strong belief, repetitiously. You are 185, slender, agile, all the things you want to be, way before you're actually 185 and doing it. So you have to, Rumi said, act as if, right? Act as if. You have to start to act as if when you wake up, that's the guy I am. I am that champion before the world sees me at that champion. I am that 185-pound force before Jordan and I see you and look at you like, damn, bro, what have you been doing? What the hell you been doing? You were already that. You were already acting like that guy way before people come up to you and start saying, damn, what the hell you been doing?
Yeah.
You look phenomenal.
That book, and listening to Michael Pollan's book about psychedelics.
Hey.
Because the power of the psychedelics, like the mushrooms, and there's a tremendous amount of interest in how, if you have one or two doses of like psilocybin, it basically, as what Joe Rogan would say, it takes all of your BS. It just reboots your brain and says all that nonsense luggage that you've been carrying, all that baggage you've been carrying around, it puts it into a file folder, and says it just puts it in and goes, my BS, and it wipes out the hard disk, and you start fresh. And I've been at that level after doing intense yoga before. I've been at that level whenever
yoga. Do the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Whenever I've done when I've done intense yoga, and so I miss that space because I'm carrying around a lot of that garbage. I'm carrying around a lot of emotional, stuff,
Yeah.
and all that stuff interferes with your clear thinking and appreciation of who you are inside, and you just get to a point of like it's too much. The little whiny voice is like, it's now is not the good time. Now is not a good time to do this. You need to be focused on other things. You need to be, doing all these other. So to answer your question, I had a reawakening on that trip in the sense of just listening to those books and
it's
throughout.
Brave for you to talk. It's brave for you to talk about this, by the way, Noah. We're not picking on you because
No, I don't feel.
Yeah, but it's brave for you. I actually really enjoyed this, so I appreciate you. Be it, the drug addicts have a saying, but by the way, I've had family members that were drug addicts, and one of them said to me one time, I said he'd been doing drugs for 20 some years, and he's like the drug addicts who are able to stop using are the ones who get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You have to hit a point where, like you said, you're there. It's 7,500 feet. It's not even intense climbing, and you're like, holy crap, I'm huffing and puffing. This is sad. This is pathetic. I'm just grossed out by no more, right? It's like I'm sick and tired of being like huffy and puffy, and I haven't even really started climbing this damn mountain, right? Like,
yeah, well, I wasn't grossed out because that's something. Now that is a naive response, and I had that before, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to use that toxic shame. So I don't, because that's contempt. To say, oh, that's gross and disgusting. I don't want to treat myself that way because that's actually like negative energy. That's taken away because what you're doing is you're toxic shaming yourself. And all I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm not coming from that place anymore. I'm not coming from a shame. I'm not coming from I don't feel shame. That's why I can talk about it right now. I don't feel vulnerable, really. What I'm saying is I'm actually coming from a place of self-worth and self-love.
Do you feel like you're disappointing yourself, Noah?
So we've been talking on this. We've been talking a lot on this podcast about regret.
Do you feel like you're disappointing yourself by not performing at a higher level there physically? So
I'm not living at my highest. I am not at my highest self. For example, I'm about to start. I'm about to start graduate school, and I've been thinking, why am I not also applying to Cornell for their executive MBA program? Why am I not giving myself those wonderful training and where you're self-improving and self-investment? Why am I not doing that for myself? Why am I not holding myself to my own standards, my high standards that I have of myself to really achieve a lot of stuff? I've got a lot of things left to do. Hitting 48 years old was a reminder to me. The pandemic, I've been in an embryonic gestational period here where, I'm in this career transition and I'm reminding myself of all the wonderful things that I've done and, all the achievements that I've made. Why am I not holding myself to that standard still of who you are? And you can live to your higher self and you can slay these beasts. And what I'm saying is 8 years ago, I approached my weight losses from a shame. I felt a lot of toxic shame and self-loathe. All right. It was very bad. And I dropped the weight and I was I'm disgusted with myself. So I used all that energy and I lost the weight, but I didn't keep it off.
Do you think that approach can work for some people?
If they want to achieve a goal.
Do you think everybody is psychologically wired to just be in a happy, hunky-dory place to be motivated by that? Or do you think that a lot of high performers can be motivated by negative stuff too. I'm not saying you have. I agree with you. You don't feel comfortable with that because you might tend to beat yourself up with it. You might tend to overdo it, and really it weighs on you. Whereas somebody else might just kick themselves in the butt, like, Frank, what the heck did you just do that for? That was stupid. Don't do it again. And then they don't dwell on it. You might be a dweller where some people dwell on the negative and they can't turn it off. And in that case, it would be destructive. Some people don't dwell on it. They address it. They stare it down and they smack themselves upside the head and say, stop doing that. That's not who you are. You know.
So let me differentiate what you just said in one way. Okay. And that's, there is a shameful, contemptuous way that you can hold yourself. You know, like, I am a piece of garbage. I am not worthy. I am not good. And you know, I got to beat this. The other way is to say, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with where I'm at, and it's not my standards. And this life is so precious. It's so wonderful. You know, because what is the opposite is nothing but a slow suicide. You know, if you're not going for your best self, if you're not reaching out to coaches, if you're not loving yourself and saying, I am so worth, I am my values, you know, what I'm worth
is there ever a time
is so
for us to
high.
kick
I
ourselves
need to
in the
live.
butt? Is there ever a time for us to kick ourselves in the butt and say,
is there ever
a time to do that?
Every day when you get up and you decide to brush your teeth.
It's all balance. This is what I would say. If somebody is so overwhelmed with shaming themselves or self-loathing, if that is the dominant emotion in them, that is sad, and I would feel empathy and compassion. But for somebody to wake up one day and say, what the heck did I do yesterday? That was the stupidest, dumbest, that was reckless, that was destructive. What are you doing, man? And then getting it together, making the bed and attacking the day and then devoting themselves to high principles. I've had those moments where there's a time for us to feel a little guilty when we messed up, when we dropped the ball. Guilt is a real emotion. It's just a matter of degree and balance. Like, how long are we going to stay there? How long are we going to stay in the past and beat ourselves up? But to just stare it down, sometimes I think we have to stare things down that are ugly and that might be negative in the short term, but they're fantastic in the long term, right? Like something.
Well, there's guilt and shame. There's guilt and shame, okay? It's like I think that Jordan embodies the concept of guilt, or I want to say in a lighter form of that, which is disappointment. You know, when you lost your last fight, I don't think that you use negative energy on yourself and shamed yourself and with toxicity. I from my impression of you, Jordan, you associated your loss with, I made some mistakes. I got to fix those mistakes. Disappointed in the outcome? Sure. But I still love myself. I'm worth something. I have high value to myself, and I just need to work on my weaknesses. Is that do you concur with that, Jordan?
To be simple, yes. That last fight was a very specific circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like I actually lost that fight. I felt like the referee came in a little bit early, and also I could not see because the kid didn't have his nails cut. You're supposed to cut your nails before the fight. It looked like I got the fight with a cat. Like, he scratched my retina, and so I could barely see him.
Okay.
I was hurt in the fight. That's not that. But since I couldn't see and he landed a couple shots, they stopped the fight. So that fight, it is what it is. Shit happens, you know. Things happen. It wasn't because he technically beat me or because I even made like too many technical mistakes. Just, this is a tough sport, man. This is a brutal sport. Things happen, you know. You can get hit, you get eye poked in your eye, you get kicked in your balls, you fall down and break your elbow. Things happen, you know. Just, it is what it is.
Martin Seligman, who is part of the positive psychology movement, and I believe he's on the professor staff of University of Pennsylvania. Said that when you're able to say something like what you did was specific and it was a very narrow, short time, and the third one I'm not remembering right now. But basically, what you just did, the way you just explained that was very specific. You know, although you're not blaming, and you're saying the ref may have, you even you put some cushion around it. You know yourself. You said, I need to pay attention to the other guy's nails. You know, you're learning from that. It's very specific, and that's very healthy, positive.
Yeah,
You're not holding on and with some kind of toxic level. You're like, yeah, it's brief and it's fleeting, and I'm moving on to the next thing. I'm sorry, Frank.
We see a lot of that in the fight realm, and I've had it too, where, for instance, if a champion loses a fight, they usually are very, a lot of them are very respectful toward their opponent. But if you listen to them, most of them are, he was the better man or she was the better woman today at this time. That's the way they think. They don't think of it as like some eternal or forever thing. It's like, hey, if you're a baseball player, there's not this year, but in every other year, there's 162 games. It's like, well, they were better today. And in the NFL, where hardly anybody goes 16-0, soon to be whatever, there'll be 17 games. They were better today. We got to get it together. And so it's a very temporary thing. And so that's what I'm saying, even with the reality of negativity. Sometimes if you look at some of the years the Patriots won the Super Bowl title, there was usually one game in the year where they got thrashed. Kansas City thrashed them like 2 of those years. Kansas City came in and beat the mess out of them in the regular season, like slaughtered them. Like, you never see the Patriots get beat like that. And guess what? Wind up being the best thing that ever happened to them. They used that. They were hard. That's not who we are. That's not what we're about. We're not focusing on the little things. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We think we're better than we are. They go back to the drawing board and they use it. So you're right. When you talk about that specificity, it's the same thing like things in the past, guys. I have people that I love. I have clients. And I would say that one of the biggest things for people, like you were talking about earlier, Noah, with emotional baggage, right? And emotional baggage that can wind up being body baggage, right? Extra weight on our body. And it's people's relationship with the past. They can't get past. They feel like, Frank, I've done so many bad things. I can't undo those things. And I just feel like when I see people that I let down or whatever, my ex-wife or whatever, or my kids or whatever it is, they can't undo that. And they live in the past. And the problem with that is, again, they're making it forever now, right? They're making their past it just drags on. It's not the past.
Yeah.
Now. That past now corrupts the present. Instead of saying, well, wait, just like an elite wrestler mindset, hey, even if you score Jordan and I are good, training partners, love training with Jordan, but it's like, if Jordan scores, guess what a good wrestler mindset is? The next points are mine. You just got those points, bro. No more points for you. The next point, and if he scores again, somebody who's really persistent, who's really in the moment, hey, the next points are mine. It's hard to psychologically break someone who's like that because they're in the moment and they're things that happen that are negative are just temporary to them. They're kind of like KFC, Colonel Sanders, who just keeps going and just keeps. And so it's really a matter of, like you were saying, is it going to be an anchor? Are we going to be anchored in the negativity? Are we going to be anchored in negative self-talk? Or are we going to be specific and say, yeah, and that day and that time? I mean, Jordan, you can speak to this. I'll turn this over to you. I've had so many, we've had matches, right? We've had competitive matches. Jordan competes, I compete. You have all these competitive matches we do, and those are very memorable. I can remember a lot of things about my matches. But we've had a lot more training sessions. When you add up, Jordan, all of the training sessions you've had, you're talking about thousands of hours on the mats. Yeah. And I've had days where I went to training where I didn't feel good and I didn't feel right. I didn't even want to go, and I'm there. And then I have some guy who's really not even that good, or he's not on my level, and he's giving me fits, or maybe he's even getting the better of me. Those eat at me. It's like, I'm like, what the hell? Now I know that I didn't get much sleep last night, or I'm a work project or whatever, or this injury's hurting me, or we were killing it yesterday with Shark Tank drills, whatever. And I know, like, oh man, there's a reason, but it still would bother me like so much. And I would just try to use that as fuel. I would drive home and think, I didn't want to just say, well, it's just because you're run down or you're this, that. I still looked and said, well, okay, yeah, there's all these life things, but if your technique was really phenomenal, Frank, that wouldn't have been close. Even a tired Frank have smoked that guy, right? Even in training. But I, you know, that's egotistical. But I think that in some ways that helped me. So I'm saying it might be negative to be like, bro, I just got worked by a guy in training who's not even that good, or I got submitted by a guy who's not even that good. And it happens, right? There's all these training sessions. So many things happen in training. But I just decided to, like, there was so much negative stuff. It was very temporary for me. I would drive home, but I always believed, like, you know, I don't know why. I just always believed, like, man, when you know, on your best days, you can beat anybody. I've never let anybody take that away from me. So every defeat was always temporary. It was always just even even training sessions. No, Jordan, what were you thinking about what I just said there? Have you had times in training, I guess, that, you know, where you were like, what's going on? This guy's not nearly as good as me, or I don't think he is, and he's getting the better of me, or how's his mic?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah,
you know what? Yeah, he dropped out. He'll be right back on soon. Let me fix my frame. Yeah, he comes right back. There he is. And waiting for his video to feed. There
he is.
Jordan, can you hear us? Oh, no, I don't hear. Yeah, your mic's not on. No, I don't know. I read those lips. I know what you said. All right, let me fix this real quick.
Yeah.
You know, let me jump back. I mentioned Martin Seligman because when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was in college, University of Houston, and I had some time on my hands. And one thing I started doing was going through the library, and I was reading books, and I came across Martin Seligman, and his book is called Learned Helplessness. Oh, okay, I think I can hear you now, Jordan.
Boom. Yeah, I think we're good now.
All right. Well, let me just quip real quick. I mentioned this psychologist Martin Seligman, University of Pennsylvania, and he's really kind of kicked off the positive psychology movement. But Frank, you are so on point with what you just said a moment ago, because you know I just had like 20 years flash through me right now in emotion, because if I could say in 2 words why to answer your question and I process it, it's the title of Martin Seligman's book, which is called Learned Helplessness. When I'm saying I'm down here and I'm looking up that mountain, or when I'm like, why am I not competing in jiu-jitsu? It's because I'm like, I'm too heavy. And it's so hard to move around. And then all these, you know, behaviors of like eating way more carbs than I need. And my body's storing as fat. And then how I'm emotionally.
This is going to help you. What I'm about to say is going to help you.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
I don't take credit, and Jordan, we're going to get to you because I want you to talk about training. I know that resonated with you before your mic cut out. But I don't take credit for what I'm about to say. This is something that I came across and listening to audiobooks and everything, but I think it speaks to your situation. And that is, who told you that you weren't good enough or you whatever, and why did you believe them? If this learned helplessness, who told you that? And why should you believe them? Why do you believe them? Whoever planted that seed, who did that?
Yeah, this is going to sound dark.
Why do you believe them, and why do you give them power?
Yeah, this is going to sound dark, but you know, I've told you guys before, my mother was married and remarried many times. And I grew up for 10 years before I left home, with a stepfather who did not call me by my name. He called me Fat Boy. And I realized on the yoga mat after some deep, like we're doing some hip opener, what they call a hip opener. And I was like, whoa, that's where this comes from. Is in my most formative years, I had a stepfather who mentally abused me with all kinds of like, yeah, it was awful. It was awful. And, you know, most boys growing up in this country, if they have a father at home, it's not their biological father. It's a stepfather. And so that father, unless they're really lucky, don't have that kind of equity in raising that child and raising that boy in a psychologically healthy way. I think that's and a lot of biological fathers, we don't have that culture yet. It's coming of how we raise our boys. And so we're having to.
Do you believe in the power of your conscious mind to go in and change the subconscious programming of like things like that? Do you believe in the power of your subconscious mind?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the reasons I'm reaching
the power of your conscious mind to go in
sure.
and rewrite the programming.
And the way, yes, you can do this. And the way you do it is you enlist your close friends, the ones you're around. You got to enlist them into the fight with you, and be open and say, look, you know, I didn't realize it before, but I got to where I'm at right here, mentally, physically. And guys, help me mend this. You know, I'll help you stronger. I hope you become stronger in ways that you are not. And I am saying, jujitsu, hey, help me become stronger in this on the mats. And you know, and so that's why I reached out to you guys today. It's the 28th week of the year. We've got time right now to work on some stuff.
So we have one more episode than there are weeks. Are we right on pace? We've averaged one a week, or are we going to be plus one now?
We're going to be plus one now. Yeah. That's where I got the 28.
We're over.
That's where I got the. I know by one. Come on, calm down. By one. But you know, the reason why, like when I was in the Marine Corps, and why I went from living with my grandmother in my last 2 years of high school, I was living with my grandparents. But that's another story. I was going to be homeless.
Okay, one other thing, and I keep shutting up, Jordan. Listen.
Yeah, Jordan, go. Okay. I'll shut up.
No,
I'll shut
wait,
up.
Wait. It doesn't. So listen, I know that you love the positive psychology stuff. You don't like the shaming stuff. But what if, I'm just a hypothetical, what if negative Noah came into your brain, right, and just wrecked shop, just started basically bitch slapping this fat boy subconscious thing that's been hindering you and whatever else, and just, what if negative Noah just went on a rampage and went in there like, you know, David Goggins style, Frank Forza style, just busting shop and wreck shop and changes the programming? Will the ends justify the means if negative Noah just shows up and says, you know what, I'm going to go in here with some brass knuckles, whatever, and that fat boy talk, I'm just going to punt that to the moon. That's done. I'm eradicating that from my brain. And now I am this guy, this 185 pound svelte, agile, whatever, and I sustain that. If you had to tap into some negative Noah for a little bit, conscious mind negative Noah to go in there and do that, could the ends justify the means? I don't know that. How do you feel about that?
Could I tap in on this real quick, guys?
Please do. Yeah. Please do, because I know my answer immediately.
I think I just realized something. So we're talking about like negative mindset versus positive mindset, and like
negative energy
versus like positive, negative energy versus positive energy.
Yeah,
I think both of you guys are correct, but I think negative energy is good if you were raised with a positive energy. But if you were raised with a negative energy, and then you're so used to the negative energy, and the negative energy gets set in at you at a very young age, and there's something inside your head wiring you to be inherently negative about yourself, then that is cancerous, and that's going to hurt you. But if that negative energy is not in you at a young age, and you have a positive energy, and then once you get to an older self and you can think about things, and you have like a good idea of yourself, you have a good what am I looking for? You have a good
Foundation,
view about yourself.
self-image.
Yes, you have a good self-image. Then when you make mistakes, then you can be hypercritical upon yourself. Then it's healthy to be hypercritical upon yourself because you already have a positive image about yourself. But at a young age, if you develop a very negative image about yourself, and then you become an adult, and then you make mistakes, then you're hypersensitive on yourself, and then you are still negative on yourself. I think that is where issues arise from, because I'm agreeing with Frank. A lot of the best people, you know what I mean, all like the greats, you know, they're very negative on themselves when they make mistakes. They're very hard on themselves. But like Frank was saying, they don't dwell on it. They fix it and then they move on. Why is that? Because they come from a place of positivity. Really, at the end of the day, they grew up. They have a positive self-image. They have a positive way of thinking about themselves. So it's allowing them to nip their mistakes on the butt and move forward. Does that make sense? I think
thank you.
Both of you guys.
Thank you.
Side.
Well, that's why they're Junior Yoda. It's good for you. It's good to have, there's 3 of us on the show because you're able to, it's always good to have more than just 2 people, because someone's there listening and observing the dialogue and opening it up. Native American tradition, where they would, have a talking stick and the rest of the tribe would listen. They would listen, and those who were at the feet, at the place around the circle, where they were talking at, they would have a chance to listen and then, go back through it. But anyways, wow. Yeah. I don't want to talk I don't want to say so much things, but I gotta say that if I had access to a child psychologist growing up, some of this would have been fixed, I think, but what I had was great people around me as time goes by. I learned to have really good people around me, like you guys, to work through these things. And we're 28 weeks into this or more now, and we're getting to like a lot, I think, of what every man and woman goes through in their life. This is one of those things which is central, is how they value and love themselves, and whether or not they conscientiously continue to live up to their own standards and what those are, and to renewal.
Answer the question that I posed to you. What if conscious mind, negative Noah, comes in temporarily?
It's not temporary though. That's who Noah already is, and that negative thing. I don't. In fact, that's why I'm more attracted to the positive. Doing this with like renewable energy. Being kind to yourself and accepting of yourself is, to me, more of a renewable energy than it is, because that's something you want to be with. You go ahead.
I was also going to say, I also agree with that too, because like I was saying, and that is on how you developed as a child. If you developed as a child with a very negative self-image and a very negative idea on life and very negative self-image on yourself, you've already been saying so many negative things to yourself throughout your life. To think of an idea of saying like more negative things to yourself to expect a positive result is kind of like, doesn't really work. But if you came from a place of like, if you came from a place where like you think you think good about yourself, or you had like a good positive image about yourself, and then when you make mistakes, then you can be, like I was saying, then it's easy to be negative upon yourself because you can fix it right then, because you've been being positive about yourself. So you have the ability to be negative about yourself and have a positive result because of it.
The negativity does not need to be aimed at the whole person. The negativity is specifically aimed if part of the problem is the fat boy comment and that sort of verbal abuse, the negativity is aimed at that. It's aimed very specifically. It's not aimed at your identity, your image. It is aimed at an assumption that you let anchor into you, that you let sink into you, an assumption that was things that were said to you that for some reason you believe. Because if you didn't believe them, it couldn't stay in your subconscious and contaminate or sabotage anything. The only way things can stay, if I don't value someone's opinion at all, deeply subconsciously, they can cuss me out and say X, Y, Z, whatever. It has no impact on my self-image. It only impacts my self-image when someone says something to me and for whatever reason, I believe it's true or I allow it. You know, it becomes auto-suggestion and I accept it, right? There's auto-suggestion. We have to be the ones to accept it. What I'm saying is applying the ferocity of, boom, the equivalent of a beatdown, the equivalent of a spiritual beatdown, and saying, hey, you negative assumption that I'm fat boy, that I'm not good enough, whatever, I'm about to give you an eviction. I'm giving you in a negative fashion, in a forceful fashion, I'm evicting you in the name of my larger positive self-image and all the great things and places I'm headed. In the name of that, I'm hereby forcibly evicting you. And if I have to use negative energy to do that, I am roto-rootering you and I'm kicking you out and I'm going to punt you to the moon. That's what I mean. So we're not talking about the whole here. We are talking about a specific targeting of any assumptions that for some reason your subconscious mind took to be true and continues to replay and replay and replay and sabotage. I'm talking about going in there and just, oh, that's the problem? You know what? He's stayed in my brain a long time. I think I'm going to have a confrontation and beat the living blank out of him. And he's going. He's evicting. I'm evicting.
I got what you're saying, Frank.
And I'm saying, do the ends justify the means there? And it's not an assault on your, the eviction of those assumptions would be a net positive to your social, to your self-image, to your positive.
I'm curious to hear what Noah says.
Yeah, no, so because it's all right. So it's using the negative stuff for me. Okay, everyone is different. Everyone is different. But you have to coach people from where they are. And that approach to me is contaminated. It's contaminated by so an example is like metals that were forged before we started using nuclear weapons have a different composition than after, okay? Because after we started using nuclear weapons, metals that are forged today are contaminated, all right? And when I was in my youth, that kind of negativity contaminated when I was in the mold, when I was being forged, okay? And you can't undo that forging. And so I've always, like when I was in the Marine Corps, there were 4 drill instructors, okay? And 3 of them motivated us in a way just like they do at Henzo's, okay? They emphasize the positive. And in the Marine Corps, I know you're like, drill instructors do that? Yeah, they can. They can do that very well because it's through extinguishment. You just don't give attention. You don't give energy to the bad parts of it. You give attention to what you want. And so if I'm drilling and if you're saying, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. Versus drilling and saying, yeah, put your leg further out. Every time you put your leg out, think of kicking it out a little further instead of, no, don't hold your leg back in, kick it out. It's just a philosophical approach. And I'm trying to express it, I'm sorry, I can't articulate it easily. This is like a little abstract. But to me, it's just, I resonate whenever like Jordan's like, no, yeah, this is challenging. You just say that this is challenging, but I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Just find it in yourself. Find it in yourself. It's there. That right there, just telling me that makes me reinforce that, oh, it is there. Yeah, I can do this. And so That versus, hey, you don't want to be fat again. You better get running. You better run faster. You're not doing fat. You're not running fast enough. Run faster. That's not that's like negative to me. That doesn't, that's not negative energy. Like
one person's negative. It's. But this is the thing. First of all, there would be no growth without stress. There would be no growth. The world needs negativity. So for all the people that want a utopia where there's no negativity, the world needs negativity. Negativity motivates negativity. Negativity today can be prosperous, can be prosperity 10 years from now. It can be spark. It can be change. So for people, where complacency comes from, where settling comes from, is people get so comfortable in things, and that is a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place spiritually. It's a dangerous place professionally.
I agree with that.
It's a dangerous place athletically.
I agree with that.
It's just a matter of in what levels can you handle the stress? In what levels? It's a degree. Some people can handle high amounts of stress, Navy SEAL, etc. Maybe some elite fighter. Some people can't, and there are different reasons for that. And there are different buttons to push, just like for diet. Certain things are going to work better for certain people. But I would say, the assumption you said you can't undo that foraging. That was an assumption in your brain. No, I don't agree with. I was thinking, at least in my brain, I was like, I don't agree with that assumption either. When we look at what's going on in our brain, at the root of the things that are self-destructing us, that are self-sabotaging us, that are self-defeating us, are assumptions that we anchor to, that we let take up residence in our brain and take up a lot of the space and run, even subconsciously talking to us, and we don't even hear that anymore. We're not even aware of the feeling and the words that are going on. And I would say, again, to talk what people will call negative. One person's negative is another. Like, again, it's kind of like fighting. People could say going into a cage is senseless, it's stupid, it's violent, it's whatever. It's negative, it's hateful, it's mean, it's violent, it's everything that's wrong with the world. It's bloody, right? One person's negative is another person's aliveness, is another person's, hey, why should anyone be legally allowed to drive a race car at 200 miles an hour? That's dangerous. People could die. One person's negative is another person's, hey, hell yeah, let's do that. So we could sit here and watch a lion eat a zebra, or a wildebeest, and say, oh my God, how horrible, that's just despicable. But that is the way that nature has designed it, as cruel and mean as it can be. And at the same time, we may be, wow, that's really mean of the lion. At the same time, there's a reverence for the lion, and see, it's like, wow, lion is the real deal, right? The lion is not to be messed with. Like, there's a respect there too. So again, I'm not saying that that's the right approach for you. I'm just saying, and that was a hypothetical, what if, as much as you don't like it, what if that got the job done quicker, brother? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's for you. I'm just saying, what if instead of taking the long road, the circuitous road, you just went in there and just went bop, 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 bop.
The only way is the long road. There are no shortcuts to this. So I would
a quicker way. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying hypothetically.
You know what would work for me is like, hey Noah, go grab your karaoke shirt that you wore or something out of that box and show me that and tell me how you're going to fit into that. Tell me, or Noah, you're only just, dude, we work on this really, really well. You're going to be able to fit into that in like what, this is mid-July, dude. There's no reason why you're not in those clothes by New Year's. If we work hard, it's possible for you. It's stupid as it is, Jordan Peterson says people just need a little encouragement. They just need so little. He was crying. He was crying on the camera in his video on YouTube, saying people need just such little encouragement. They need just such little encouragement. So a little bit of that positive stuff works.
There's nothing new about that.
That works well for.
I was a really good writer, and nobody noticed it until I got to my junior year of college and wound up being a journalist. Nobody said anything. Nobody ever complimented my writing.
there's a lot of writers out there like David Foster Wallace and others who weren't really recognized until after their deaths.
Yeah. Somebody
don't die though.
My writing career could have been set.
Don't go kill yourself.
It could have been accelerated a lot quicker if somebody had made a comment. I mean, I might
maybe for you, you need to be told you're green slime like your t-shirt and you can do better. Maybe you need that verbal beatdown. I don't want it.
You're a misunderstanding.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's why I went to that. That's why I went to that.
Misunderstanding.
Good.
I spend, and I will guarantee you, you can listen to all the apps you want. I will guarantee you that more than 99% of the people, I talk myself up more than 99% of the human population on a daily basis. And it's not a beatdown. I'm not going to sit here and bore people with what I say. I put the time in. I was a philosophy major before people knew what the hell a podcast was. Before most people gave a damn about self-growth and self-development. I was a philosophy major in college 20-some years ago, before I knew who the hell Jordan Peterson was, before I knew who the hell Joe Rogan was, before I knew who any of these professors was. I was thinking about thinking. I was thinking about conscious mind. I was thinking about the best ways to do things. I know how to talk positive and do that. I know how to do that. But I'm just telling you, there's a balance there. There's a yin and there's a yang. To neglect a whole half of energy that is a real thing that has been proven historically to still be a fantastic fuel, and what is negative and what is positive can get very blurred along the way. Blurred.
What?
And I know what I can't even listen. The way I talk myself up, I can't even say it on this podcast. I won't even say it. That's how much I exponentially. Most of these people will be babies. Their self-talk compared to my self-talk. It would be a baby. I won't.
So maybe we need to.
Number one, I would charge someone a lot of money for it, and number two, people would think I was crazy. But listen, Muhammad Ali. Okay, I said this in my TEDx talk. Muhammad Ali is considered. ESPN ranked the greatest athletes of all time. Okay, they ranked the greatest of all time. Who came in number one? I just told you, Muhammad Ali. Who talked more than anybody? More than any athlete. Verbally and then to himself, more than Ali did. Ali was
Conor McGregor.
Conor came a lot later after Ali.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying of all time.
Ali did it. Jack Johnson was doing it in the 1890s. Okay, so Jack Johnson, go do your research on Jack Johnson, who doesn't get his due and who was phenomenal with his mindset and didn't give a damn and was brave and bold. Ali said, dude, he was braver than me. Jack Johnson was a lot braver than I am. But my point is, I spend a lot of time doing that. But I'm just saying, to say, though, that we have to always stay positive, hunky-dory, to me is not realistic. And it is denying and depriving people weapons that can have positive impact in their life. The same way people say, 20 years ago, why would I sign my son and daughter up for MMA and jiu-jitsu? It's violent, it's bloody, they'll get hurt. It's negative. It's mean. My kid will be violent. This is the same thing. People they made the assumption that it's negative. You are making the assumption that I am sitting here saying negative, 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 negative. I'm just saying negative is one weapon among others, but to never push that button, to decide I'm never going to push that button, I personally think is a disservice a lot of people do to themselves. I think it's a disservice because it is the right answer sometimes. I'm not saying it's the right answer all the time. I spend a lot of time on positive, positive, positive. I do a lot of that. But to say that, Frank, I'll never push a negative button, no way. He is.
Uh-oh. Can't hear you, Frank. Jordan, do you hear it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Jordan. Frank, I don't hear you. Do you hear me? Okay, I don't hear you. Sometimes on your phone, if you move something, we'll see. Ow! Frank left. Maybe that's how.
How are we doing on time?
It's time. It's 30. It's 3:05. Well, maybe this is a way, Jordan, you and I can get a word in.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear about when. When would you use this? Hey, Frank, can you hear us?
Yeah. Oh, well, let me say one other thing. If you were to go into a fight tomorrow, Noah, we're going to put you in the cage. Okay? We're going to put you in the cage. And if you said, I only want to go in the cage with my positive self, I'm only bringing my positive self in the car. Only the parts of me that are positive get to come into the cage. Brother,
Okay.
as your coach, I would plead with you, do not do that. Bring every part of you, bring every weapon, bring the good, bring the bad, bring a little bit of the ugly. I would say bring all of you. Don't be a house divided amongst yourself. Bring the negative to the party too. When you're fighting a ferocious battle, whether it's in your own mind or it's in a cage or it's in a jiu-jitsu tournament, guess what, Noah? Bring every part of you, buddy. Bring a little negativity to the party too. Would you want to bring some negativity if we put you in a cage tomorrow? Would you want to tap into that?
I'm going to deflect. I'm going to deflect your question to Jordan, and ask Jordan when is it appropriate to use that negativity?
I definitely use the negativity, man, but you gotta make sure that you don't get reckless if you become angry when you're fighting. Becoming angry and using negativity are kind of separate things. I wouldn't use anger, but I would use some negative sides, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
What about in your training?
Violent.
What about in your training? In your training? Yeah. When you're on the slack line and you're not balancing yourself, what do you say to yourself when you fall off?
Why did I fall? What did I do?
All right. And my cat's coming here. Come here, buddy.
I take that approach too when I'm training, really. I try not to be negative when I'm training. Like when somebody submits me, I try and think like, man, like what was my technical mistake? What did I do wrong that made them mistake? But
yeah.
all right, so I'll use this as an example. I was rolling with this guy, and he's a white belt, right? And I was teaching the class, so I was the head coach. I was there to open the gym, close the gym, lock everything up. I was the coach, and I'm teaching some class to this guy. Really, 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 really athletic, strong black guy, D1 wrestler, just looks like boulders for muscles. Just blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, like this guy will be a fun roll, like whatever. We start rolling. He takes me down with a big, big, big judo throw. And immediately I'm thinking in my head, like, oh man, like why did that happen? And I identified it right away. I'm like, I let him get a strong underhook, and that's why I'm on my back right now. That's why this dude just threw me. We keep scrambling and stuff. I sweep him. I pass the guard. I get to the mount. I hold him in the mount for a while. And now I'm thinking like, oh man, this guy's a visitor. I got to submit him. I have to submit him. And so I go for an armbar on a guy that's way bigger, way stronger than me, and is a D1 wrestler. I'm in the mount. I'm controlling the position.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fall back. I try and transition to S mount, and then I take the armbar. I fall back to the armbar. He stacks me in the armbar, picks me up.
Oh my! Uh-oh.
It's probably like his first or second day in jiu-jitsu. Picks me up, runs, blah, slams me like it's like a running start.
Running slam
on my head. And I stand up, and I'm immediately furious, just like anger, just from head to toe, just steaming. Just I don't even think about what I'm doing. He slams me in my head, and as soon as I get slammed on my head, something clicks in my head where I'm like, oh, I'm in a fight now. We're fighting. Like this is no, we're not rolling anymore. We are fighting now. And I stand up because he slammed me and he was standing up, and then I fell down to the floor. I stood up and I started sprinting at him, and in my head, I'm targeting his head. I'm going to throw a flying head kick at this guy. And I'm just, as I'm running at him, he looks at me like all like bug-eyed, like he could tell like I was running at him. It was no longer jiu-jitsu. And he kind of put his hands up and he was like, yo, like, and then I stopped myself. Thankfully, I didn't throw a kick at him. I didn't do anything. I stopped myself in the last instance, and I was like, I can't act like this. I'm the instructor of the class. I can't afford to be acting this way. And I was like, hey man, like there's no slamming, dude. You can't slam people. And he's like, oh, like sorry man, like I'm a wrestler. I thought you're allowed to slam. And then we kind of had words. And then, but pretty much what I'm trying to get to is I thought about it afterwards, and at first, initially, I was angry. I was angry, and I was angry at him. And then I realized I had to transfer the anger to myself because it wasn't his fault. He was a wrestler. He was just freaking out. He's a white belt that has insane capabilities. You know what I mean? He's not used to jiu-jitsu. He's a wrestler. So he's an athletic freak wrestler that has insane capabilities. And he didn't know any better than to slam me, or at least he claimed he didn't know any better to slam me. But I had to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was my problem. It was my technical mistake that I was in the mount and I didn't just hold the position and stay in the mount and either transition to the back and take a choke or go for a head and arm choke and stay on top. It was my technical mistake that I fell off on a guy that's way bigger and stronger than me, way more athletic than me, and that I went for an arm, and the guy's arm is obviously way stronger than both of my arms. So I had I had to transfer my anger from him, and I had to immediately address it and turn the anger. It wasn't really anger though. I had to turn I just had to address it on myself. You know, I had to be like, all right, that wasn't his fault. That was my fault. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes there is a time to be negative upon yourself, but as long as you're being hypercritical and you're trying to immediately address the mistake that you made. What was the mistake that you made, pretty much? As long as you're being negative and you're like Frank was saying, you can be negative upon yourself. Oh, I made a mistake. I messed up. Now, what was the mistake and how can I make sure that mistake does not happen again? Instead of, oh, I made a mistake. I suck. I can't believe I let that happen to me. That guy's so much better than me. Instead of going that negative approach, go, all right, I made a technical mistake. Now, why did I make that technical mistake, and how can I avoid that technical mistake from happening again in the future? Let it hurt.
So that was constructive.
Exactly. Let it hurt. Let it sting. Let it bother you. It's good to let it bother you as long as you let it mold you and you learn from the mistake and you get better because of it.
Yeah, well, I don't consider that negative, though, any of that. I mean, there's a bit of polishing that occurred for you as a brown belt, I would assume, with you're becoming more polished as a brown belt because you saw yourself in a volatile situation and you were able to manage your emotions at the last second.
Yeah.
Control yourself. Frank, would you agree that's not negative? That's actually, that's just emotional self-control there?
Well, I mean, that just happens. I've been doing this a long time. That just happens. That he knows that. I mean, Jordan knows that. That's just part of the experience. Those things are going to happen. There's going to be, if tempers aren't flaring up every now and again, I'm not saying, of course you didn't, he's the instructor. So things are even harder on you when you're the instructor because you're held to the absolute highest standard. That's why there's sometimes when I coach that I won't roll with certain people. And it's not that I don't think I could beat them. It's that sometimes to beat them, I might have to really destroy them, like physically just destroy them because of the way their personality is or they're wild and reckless. And
you're going to have to prove a point.
Yeah, and that can look really bad in front of the class. So you don't want to do that. So you avoid rolling, not because some people, they're literally our students, the ones with the big, huge egos that come in there and think that they can beat the higher belts. And if they have the wrong attitude, there are some of them that think that they can beat you, especially if you are not rolling with them. They will think that they can beat you. And what they don't realize is part of the reason that sometimes someone like me, again, I'm a smaller guy. If I was Robert Drysdale and I was 240 or 235, or I was even, Rafael, your guy there in Henzo Gracie's, if I was a bigger guy or I was a super phenom, then I could probably just, toy with whoever. But I'm not. I'm a guy that there is an element of physicality involved in what I do in my style. Jordan's roll with me. And so as a 140-pound guy, a guy comes in, he's 200, he's got a bad attitude. He wants to roll with me. Hey, you want to roll? And most of the time I will roll with them, but sometimes I don't because I'm thinking they've approached me with the wrong attitude. Maybe I'm going to make it a little bit personal. Maybe I'm going to use too much power. It's just not going to look good. It's not going to be as professional, like he was saying. So those situations arise. There, I think most instructors, do a good job of navigating that. I was having this discussion last night with a guy because, there's a lot of things going on in the world now. And I was saying to him, there are some people, when it comes to personal responsibility, right? We start talking about personal responsibility, like and by the way, I've made excuses at times in my life too, right? I try to eliminate. That's something I've tried to eliminate, right? Is excuses, right? Because that can be an impediment to being a champion, to mastering your mind. But I've had times in my life where I've made excuses and I thought this was against me or this was the reason. And the more personal responsibility that I take on, I think a lot of areas of my life have improved. But I think, what percentage of the population, like no matter what, whether we're in a capitalist society or we're in socialism or we're in communism or whatever we're on, what percentage are still going to just, no matter what, you can throw anything at them and they'll either die or they're going to thrive? What percentage? You're probably, give or take, and this number's been passed down through the centuries, I would say it's about right. It's about 3%. 3% of the people don't care what the conditions are. They don't care how windy, how cold, how whatever. They're kind of like the Navy SEAL mindset, the elite fighter mindset's like, look, you can make society whatever you want. I'm going to eat. I'm going to flourish. I'm going to thrive, or I'll die trying, right? So there's a 3%. 97% of people, probably, rough estimate, it's like, wait. 97% of people don't like ultimate, extreme personal responsibility and accountability. What that 97% wants, in addition to they want the books, they want the science books to be written, say, please crack this code and let me figure this out because I'm not going to figure it out on my own, or I'm not going to figure it out in a timely fashion. The 97% wants, hey, can you please create very favorable conditions for me so that I can thrive and prosper? Now, by the way, do not read into what I just said and say, well, Frank is favoring the 3% over the 97%. False. It's false. People who think, well, Frank identifies with the 3% and he does not. False. I identify with both. I identify with both. So we have a responsibility on the one hand as instructors to promote personal responsibility, extreme ownership, extreme personal responsibility and accountability. And on the other hand, we have a responsibility to realize, hey, everybody's not built in this sort of survival of the fittest thing. Everybody's not meant to be whatever weather, whatever conditions. Everybody's not a Navy SEAL. So how do we create conditions for more people to prosper and to thrive and to become their better self? You have to do both at the same time. But we can't, when we address the 97% who, there's different levels of personal responsibility in there, right? Yeah. But we still have to constantly teach personal responsibility and personal accountability. We all need more of that. But conditions do matter. But there's a certain percentage like Jocko Willink or Tim Kennedy or just whatever, an elite martial artist, bro, they'll just adapt. They'll just be like, pick whatever system you want. I'll win. I'll thrive. Some people are just minded like that, right? And most of us are not. Most of us are like, well, but the systems are broken and this isn't being taught right. Or like you're saying, Noah, stuff was being taught too negatively. It's too old school. It's coming from too negative a place. So both have to happen, I think. We need to be able, how do we coach and teach the 3% that are like, hey, throw everything at me, make it tough, make it difficult, make it a struggle. If it's not hard, I'd have no interest in it. If it's something everyone can do, I have no interest in it. That's that tiny percent. And I'm minded for that optimal, that percent too. But I'm also minded for the 97%. Say, hey, you know what? I don't want to sign up full-fledged for that, and there's too much negativity or whatever, or there's just too much. Can we modify that with even more positivity, with more creating better conditions for us? And so both have to be true. I support and I favor both. You have to know who you're dealing with and who you're not. But this is a conversation I had last night, and for some reason, the conversation we've been having made me think of that.
Okay. Wow. I totally did not expect to have this conversation today. But I didn't anticipate it, but a lot of what we've been doing is building up to it. It took 6 months, 7 months for us to get here. But yeah, we're here. I'm sorry, my cat is, guys, you there?
Yes, sir, buddy.
My cat he is the image of persistence. He wants my attention and it won't let me go. Finally got him away. Sorry.
You just got a zoo going on. You got a zoo going there now. You're just adding, your family gets bigger every month.
I don't know about that. I'm getting bigger every month, and it's time to change that.
I think your awareness, I think you're going to start losing now because you brought your awareness to it. You brought it into focus. So I think it's going to start happening. I think the incredibly shrinking Noah Green.
You know, this has just been marination or even fermentation. Just being around you two with this podcast and getting into this mental space, what other outcome would there be but for us to, each of us individually, work on ourselves off the mats?
If we're going to keep doing this podcast, you guys got to step your game up with a tan. I'll just say that. I'm very
freckle
at the whiteness. I'm just seeing this. This is the ivory. This is, you guys got to step your game up, both of you. I know it's summertime there in Vegas. You guys have no excuse. 7 p.m. You can get out there.
Freckle, man.
Get some vitamin D.
I don't believe in it.
Freckle, man.
I've been looking at this the whole time. I'm like, wow, like look at their complexion.
Yeah, but I turn red. Okay, I just turn red.
I enjoy my skin tone, Frank. I like them. I like my skin tone being very bright. I hate how everybody's trying to be tan. I like very bright.
But I've been doing this for a long time.
I know. I'm not saying you're following. You're definitely not a trend follower, Frank. You do your own thing. I'm just saying how it's typically perceived that tan people are more attractive. I don't like that. I like the pale.
Yeah, I wasn't saying you guys aren't good looking. I wasn't saying that. Even though I don't pass any judgment. I'm neutral on that. I don't do this podcast with that. I'm not like, oh, Noah's looking especially handsome today, especially grizzly. Yeah. Although Noah, have you had a beard the entire time we've been shooting? I'm trying to. Have I ever seen you without a beard? Have I ever seen you without a beard?
Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I shave it all off. I shave it down.
Without a beard, it looks strange.
I think I look strange with a beard, but I've kind of grown accustomed to it. Well, since I figured since I shaved this part needs to stay.
Well, I want to say this.
Balance.
We're over time today. This is the conclusion of episode 29. I will say this. Noah, thank you very much for being, very candid today and letting us know where you are. I do expect that great things will be happening. Jordan's going to help you there. I will say that for people out there listening that, again, obviously the world does need, we've been talking about, how to harness negative energy and dark energy and these things and whatever, and positive psychology. I do believe the world needs more love. It does need more positivity. It does. It needs more people that are good, that are coming from a good space. It does need more of that. I'm just saying, for me, for optimal performance, it's balance. It's trying to put both together and creating like a oneness in yourself. But again, I do think that, we'll end on this note, that I think that the world does need a lot more positive, genuinely positive energy and good people and even people that are coming from a loving and forgiving space. It doesn't have enough of that. It does have plenty of anger and hate and meanness and you're not good enough and I'm better than you. It has plenty of that. It does have plenty of that. But the problem is some of that lives in us. Some of that lives in us. And if I were to go into a fight or I go into an extreme situation, I can say, hey, Frank, only the positive part of you gets to come to this party. And it's like, wait, I got news for you. Only the positive part of me probably won't move the mountain. It takes every part of ourselves working in harmony. Good, bad, ugly, demons. To me, if we're going to go like really out on the edge, it takes every part of it. Like, to throw away some parts, it's like, wow, like you might not recognize me. If I was like Mr. Negative, I mean, if I was like totally 100% Mr. Positive, I don't know that I even want to do the podcast.
So I will say this. So I'm gonna not concur with you and say that on your worst day, remind yourself of how much you do love yourself. And with that, part of that love doesn't mean you're going to go soft on yourself. That does not mean, in fact, It's the opposite. It's like whenever on your worst day, when on the worst day of your life, whenever your jar is cracked and broken and shattered, what you should remember is that there's a heart of gold inside of you. And it has achieved so much, and you survived so many things. And on your worst day, you will survive that too. And it's just by having a bond with yourself and saying, yeah, you can say a lot of mean things and terrible things and acidic things to yourself, but you don't need to. On your worst day, just trust yourself to bring the highest sense of yourself.
That's a good ending note.
Nothing from you, Jordan? Come on.
Nothing from me. Nothing from me, my man.
All right, we'll get something. I'm sure. No, nothing from you right now. Wait until I get on the mat. And you're like, all right, let's do this. And I'm like, you got it. You got it. And then a few minutes later, when we're doing the alligator jacares, the movement.
I love those. I
know you do.
I just did it yesterday.
I just worry about my shoulder. I just worry about my shoulder doing it. So we got to modify it. I have to go on my shoulder when we flip sides to do it. We'll have to work with that injury. We'll have to work it out. Yeah, work it out. I'm not going to be like hating myself. I might not be liking how I feel, but I'm going to be like bringing out the gold. I'm like, yes, this is golden. This is golden. I love it. I love it. Let's get into a fight like this. I love it. I love this. When I tasted that metal in my mouth the other day on Mount Charleston, I was like, yeah. I miss this. I miss like really getting struggling to breathe. I miss that. I miss that so much. And I want to bring that out. Now I recognize, when you recognize you're at your limit, physical limit, but you mentally, it's like, oh, I got more to give. I got more to give, and so much more. Guys, thank you for your time. Episode 29 in the books.
See you guys.
All right. Have a good day.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Later, guys.
Good day.